Hello, everyone. Hello. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. I hope you're all doing well. I have never been so nervous about a case. I honestly have never been so nervous. I am so nervous. I can't even put into words how nervous I feel. And I just can't imagine. I can't imagine how Richard Allen's feeling today. I can't imagine how his team are feeling. I can't imagine how his family are feeling. And of course, I can't imagine how Abby and Livy's families are feeling. Because today is the day. Today is the day that the jury go to deliberate on Richard Allen's fate. In just under an hour's time, just a second. Kyle just got out of the shower, so he's gone back in his room now, so we shouldn't have too many interruptions from now on. In just under an hour's time, closing arguments are going to begin. All the testimony's done. Closing arguments are not evidence. Closing arguments are each side's opportunity to basically put all the pieces together for the jury from their perspective. Prosecution goes first, then the defense, and then the prosecution also gets an opportunity for rebuttal. Because they've got the burden of proof, the prosecution has the burden of proof to prove that Richard Allen is the guy that murdered Abigail Williams and Liberty German on February 13th, 2017. They've got the burden of proof, so they go first in closing arguments, as they do in the trial. And then they also go last. They get an opportunity to rebut. Hey, you've got some memberships here. Let me just have a see. Whoop. So we got 5 memberships. Thank you so much, Purple AJ. Thank you. We've got PJ, Vision, Joe in Space, Callie Nurse, I think that says, Mama 4 Boys, and Poke in the Ozarks. Welcome. You get a month's free membership, courtesy of the truly wonderful Purple AJ. We've also got another donation here from Krista. This came in before we started with a question. And it's a very, very good question as well. Happy Thursday. What points do you think the defense really needs to tie together in their closing? Excellent question. And hopefully, well, what I'm going to do in this live stream is I'm going to imagine that I'm doing the closing arguments for the defense. Now, I'm not a lawyer, but I'm pretty logical and I'm pretty good at spotting inconsistencies. And there's been some inconvenient truths that have been had in this trial. So if I was doing closing arguments, I would want to attack the timeline in as many ways as I could. And quite frankly, the prosecution have given the defense quite a lot to attack. Right, closing arguments, they can't bring new stuff in. It's not evidence. It's just an opportunity to basically tell the story. Now all the evidence has been heard by the jury, to tell the story from their perspective. So I would draw on every single inconsistency. I'd draw on every single aspect, and I'd finish with the confessions. And I'd make it absolutely crystal clear that Rick Allen could not have done this crime based on the state's own evidence. At the very least, the state have not proven their case beyond a reasonable doubt. That doesn't mean to say that the defense is going to win, that the jury are going to come back with a not guilty verdict. In my opinion, the verdict should be not guilty, even if Richard Allen's the guy. In my opinion, the verdict should be not guilty because, in my opinion, the state have not proven their case. So that's just where I'm at with it. And that's what I'm going to do in this video. I'm going to go through systematically. And no, I can't cover every single tiny point. This is kind of broad brushstrokes. But even doing a broad brushstrokes overview of the things we've heard and the glaring inconsistencies, it becomes very clear that the prosecution have not proven the case beyond a reasonable doubt. So even if Richard Allen is the guy, the verdict should be, in my opinion, not guilty. But you can never gauge what a jury's going to do. So I can't call it. I have a sick feeling. I have a sick feeling that something like this might be right. This is Pinchot saying, if the jury isn't aware of what's going on in the rest of the world, which they're not, they'll probably find him guilty. You see, we know a lot more than they do. We've been able to analyze this stuff over years. And the jury are not. By definition, the jury are meant to come into the case knowing nothing. You know, yeah, they may have heard of the case. They may have, you know, seen something at some point, but they've got no opinion, and they're going to let the evidence speak. And they're going to deliberate and come to their decision based on the evidence at trial. And that's as it should be. But what they don't have is the benefit of the years of research and attention that people in this community have given the Delphi case. And they haven't been privy to all of the, you know, the after, you know, every day, you know, there's been people in the courtroom who've come to YouTube and they've given a really complete account of everything that was said. You know, shout out to Andrea Burkhart and Bob from Defence Diaries and Lawyer Lee. Those are the three that I've been watching. And I guess Andrea and Bob come at it from a defence perspective. They are defence lawyers. Lawyer Lee, I think, has been more, she's not given her opinion, but you don't need someone else's opinion to see how there's glaring problems. So many problems with this. So hopefully what I'm going to do is show you some of them. Just some of them. And closing arguments, they're saying that Judge Gull is allowing them 2 to 2.5 hours each. So that's a long time. So that's a very generous time for closing arguments. And I don't know that closing arguments would take 2 hours. I mean, look, if they fill the time and it's impactful, great. But what I wouldn't want is a long rambling closing arguments and important points get lost in the weeds. I think the closing arguments need to be bang, 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 fact, 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 fact. Or else things might get lost in the weeds. So let's say each side goes 2 hours. So 9 till, oh, we've got instructions as well. So jury instructions, they may take like, I don't know, half an hour, 40 minutes, maybe even longer. So we've got that to factor in. So if each side does 4 hours, not each side, well, each side does 2 hours, so 4 hours together. Let's say an hour for closing for jury instructions. Let's factor in an hour for lunch. So we're looking at quite late in the afternoon for the jury to start deliberating. But the jury are sequestered So they've not got homes to go to. They've got a hotel room to go to. So I don't know how long Judge Gull will allow them to deliberate today. So is today the day for the verdict? Don't know. If closing arguments are done and dusted before lunchtime, so each side doesn't do 2 hours, and closing arguments are done for each side by lunchtime, and then the jury gets straight to deliberation, and the court will provide the refreshments, they'll give them food. So, they can have a working lunch, they can have a working meal in the evening if they're going to stay that long. So we could well get a verdict today. We could well, because this jury want to go home. They've only seen their families and spoken to their families for the last 3 weeks under supervision of the bailiffs. It's like they've been in jail. So this jury want to go home. So I don't think it's going to be a Karen Reid situation. Let's put it that way. I don't think it is. I might be wrong. So I'm going to come live. I'm going to be on absolute pins all day. Bear in mind, I'm 5 hours ahead of Indiana. So it's currently 1:15 for me in the PM. So if they go to 7, 8 o'clock at night, it's going to be like 1 a.m. for me. But I will go live. I will be up and I'll go live. I'm going to stay up. Now, it's going to be really, really awkward, because I know there are people who've been in the courtroom, like Bob and Andrea. They're going to go live during verdict watch. I believe that's what Bob was saying yesterday. So we're going to have something to occupy ourselves, maybe, possibly, for some of verdict watch. But then all of those people who have been in that courtroom are going to need to go and get in there. It's going to be like a massive scramble to get back in the courtroom for the verdict to be read. It's going to be a massive scramble. Yeah, we're all mad here. Jury are going to be deliberating today. We're going to go into verdict watch today. As I've been saying, closing arguments are this morning. So the jury are going to be deliberating today. The jury is sequestered, so she's not going to send them home after closing arguments. They're going to go straight into deliberation. So we are going to be in verdict watch today. At what time? I'm not sure. It depends how long closing arguments go on for. But we are going to be in verdict watch today. So if there's a verdict today, I'm going to stay up. I'm not going to be able to sleep. I'm going to stay up and I'll go. I don't know how it's going to work, though. I'm guessing that somebody will tweet to say, rush into the courtroom. The judge might give people 15 minutes to get into the courtroom. So whoever's there during verdict watch, whatever YouTubers are there and journalists, they're going to have to stick within, 15 minutes of that courtroom. So we're going to find out from somebody that the verdict is in. And at that point, I will go live. Once I see, I've got my thumbnail and everything, I've got it all ready, I will just go live as soon as I see anybody, somebody who's reputable, who's credible, not just some random, somebody who actually has been covering the case and I know he's in the courtroom, to say that there's a verdict. I'll go live. And then we're going to have to wait, because they're not going to be able to tweet or speak or anything whilst inside the courtroom. We're going to have to wait until they get out of the courtroom to know what the verdict is. It's just the most bizarre thing. But like I said, I don't know how long Judge Gull is going to let them deliberate today. Now, in the Sarah Boone case, for those of you who followed me during the Sarah Boone trial, and we had the verdict watch, they sent them to deliberate. It was like 7 o'clock, wasn't it? Before they even started deliberating, like 7 o'clock at night, before they even started deliberating. So thank the Lord that they didn't take too long. But that was like, I don't know, 2 a.m., something like that, when I was live with the verdict. So I've done it before. I've done it in the very recent past, so I can do it again. I can do it again. She's an absolute control freak. All right, so without further ado, I'm going to go through my inconsistencies. It's broad strokes, taking everything into consideration. And I'm going to go through this. All right, where am I going? Why am I going into settings? I don't need settings. I need share screen. I've got to share my entire screen for this because I got a PowerPoint. You know, it's serious. So I've been building this PowerPoint up. Some of you will have seen some of these slides as I've been building this PowerPoint up over the last week or so with this day in mind. Today's the day when you see the completed PowerPoint. Ta-da! Here it is. Let's go. Yeah, Linda, let's go. All right, so what do the state have against Richard Allen? Witnesses? No. They even brought, during the prosecution's rebuttal yesterday, they even brought Bree Wilbur back to say that, oh, she's found this photo of her on the Freedom Bridge at like 12:25, and then her and her friends walked to the Morning High Bridge and they didn't see anyone. Didn't see anyone at all. Okay, cool. All right, you need a better screen than that, don't you? You're not going to be able to see that well, are you? That's better. All right, that's better. Okay. I can see what you can see on my other screen, so that'll do. All right, so no witnesses. No witnesses saw him. No witnesses saw anyone who looked like him at all at any time. Now, we know he was there. He said he was there, so we know he was there, but no one saw him. Bizarre. And we know that all of that guff that was in the PCA isn't true. That, you know, the muddy and bloody man, just not true. The car that looked like his parked at the old CPS building, not true. Rick didn't park there. And nobody saw his car there. Nobody saw his car at the old CPS building. Okay, DNA. Nope, no DNA. Thank you, and on and on. And on and on. And on and on for the $1.99. So kind of you. No DNA from Rick at the crime scene. We heard a lot from the DNA person who did the DNA analysis, and there was some male DNA at the scene, but there wasn't enough to make a full profile, and she wasn't even sure whether the DNA that was there was related to the crime scene. So no DNA. No DNA, Richard Allen, but no DNA for anyone else either. Why are other channels spreading misinformation? I don't know, honestly. I don't know what other channels you're talking about. Don't put them in the chat. If you're gonna, you know, be mean or negative, don't put their names in the chat. I'm happy for you to mention channels. Happy to you know mention your favorite channels, or if you've got a channel, you can. I'm happy for you to mention that you've got a channel, but I don't want people to be negative towards others. I don't think that's a good look. All right. Also, unspent round. Well, yeah, some evidence here. Melissa Oberg, however, who was the Indiana State Police ballistics person who did this analysis, she couldn't conclusively repeat what she's alleging, or they're alleging, Richard Allen did, which is cycle through without firing. So he's cycling it out of the weapon without firing it. She couldn't do it. She couldn't replicate the marks that were on that round that was found at the scene just by cycling it. She couldn't do it. When she fired a round from his Sig Sauer, then that's how she apparently got the match. But you're comparing apples with oranges. It's common sense. You're comparing apples and oranges. And the expert that the defense brought, by all accounts, I mean, some people thought his testimony wasn't that great. I mean, I don't know. I wasn't there. Not allowed to watch it. But he said that, no, you're not comparing like with like. So there's that. And also, other weapons couldn't be excluded. Couldn't be excluded, other weapons, including Brad Weber's Sig Sauer, which he had on him at the day of the murders. But where was Rick? Now, I think this is something that the defense are going to have to be really, really clear here on. Because where was Rick? No one saw him. He's put himself there, but no one else saw him. So where was he and what time was he there? So I think the defense are going to have to really bring these minute points in to be very clear. And something that, people who were in the court yesterday and who were really surprised, really surprised that the defense rested, they all came into court yesterday expecting there to be a morning of defense witnesses. And Brad Rosie just stood up and said the defense rests. I think we've all been expecting Kathy Allen to testify. And at least Kathy Allen would be able to say, what Rick was like. What was he like on that day? What was he like? Would he behave differently? Did he do laundry that he doesn't normally do? But then again, it was 5.5 years previous when Rick was arrested. It was 5.5 years ago. So would she even remember? Would she be believable? Would the jury think, well, she's his wife. She loves him. She's sticking up for him. So is it worth putting her on the stand, even if she's telling the absolute truth? And she does remember what happened that day, because it's a day that probably everyone in Delphi, remembers. It's like you remember where you were when you first heard of what happened at 9/11 in New York. I absolutely remember where I was, what I was doing when I heard the news that 9/11 had happened, and it was the first plane that had gone into the first tower. Someone rang me and said, are you at home? I said, yeah. I was working on my PhD at the time. And he said, do you have a TV on? I said, no, why? I'm working. He said, get the TV on. There's a plane that's just hit the one of the Twin Towers. Like, you're joking. Get away. He said, put your TV on. And I put the TV on, and I think the second plane was just hit at that point. I remember it absolutely. It's about 2 p.m. for me. I wasn't born when Kennedy was shot, but people say that they remember where they were when JFK was shot and killed. So maybe for the people in Delphi, maybe they do remember more about that day than you would just remember, any other random day. But, I think maybe the defense thought, the trauma that Kathy would have to go through under cross-examination, maybe it just wasn't worth it. So I think the defense do have to do some work here to make it absolutely clear to the jury where it was and when he was at the trials. Thank you so much, Light the Way, for the £10. That's exactly what I'm doing at the moment. I'm kind of like spinning on my chair. Like, wave it, like spin it. Not all the way around like that, but I do spin it. All right. So in the PCA, it stated that Rick was on the trails between 1:30 p.m. and 3:30 p.m. This is the PCA. Investigators reviewing prayer tips. So we now know the investigator was a volunteer, someone called Kathy Shank. She gave evidence. And she said she was tidying up. They were organising the old tips and, I don't know, moving them and stuff. And she encountered this tip from someone called Richard Allen Whiteman. Even his wrong name was on it. It was on Whiteman Drive, but Dan Dullard, who, met Rick called in on the 16th of February and said, I was on the trails. They were appealing for people who were on the trails to come forward, just to, say what you saw. Anything could be, you might think it's inconsequential, but it might be the thing that, really helps law enforcement. So Rick rang up. 2 days later, Dan Dullard contacted him and said, can I meet you to interview you? And they met in a park. Rick was out and about. And he said, well, I'm out, but yeah, I'll meet you now. And they went to a parking lot and Rick just had a chat with him. So it wasn't recorded, unfortunately. But this is what the tip said. Mr. Allen was on the trail between 1:30 and 3:30, parked at the Ormford Bureau building and walked to the New Freedom Bridge. While at the Freedom Bridge, he saw 3 females. He noted one was taller and had brown or black hair. He did not remember description, nor did he speak with them. He walked from the Freedom Bridge to the High Bridge. He did not see anybody, although he stated he was watching a stock ticker on his phone as he walked. Stated there were vehicles parked at the High Bridge trailhead. However, he did not pay attention to them, did not take any photos or videos. So Rick handed his phone over so that Dan could write down the unique identifier. So Rick actually handed his phone over to a law enforcement official on the 18th of February. Handed his phone over. They gave it straight back to him and cleared it. They cleared it because the question, the follow-up was, who were the 3 girls? Well, they found out who the girls were. There were actually 4 girls, but they found out who the girls were, who they are claiming, who the prosecution are claiming saw Rick Allen. But did Rick actually only see 3 girls? Because there was plenty of people out and about. So bringing Bree Wilbur back yesterday and saying that between 12:25 and 1:30 she didn't see anyone, well, that's blatantly untrue because there was loads of people out and about that day. So maybe she didn't notice, but anyway, that's what the PCA says. So puts him squarely in the time frame of the murders. However, in October 2022, during the police interrogation, so he was interrogated on the 13th of October 2022 by Steve Mullin and Tony Liggett. Tony Liggett, Sheriff of Carroll County. Steve Mullin, who was the Delphi police chief in 2017, works for the prosecutor now as an investigator. So they couldn't crack him. So 13 days later, on October 26th, they got him to meet Jerry Holman. Got him to meet him by lying to him. And on that day, he was arrested. However, in the conversation with Steve Mullin, he said he left between 1:30 and 1:45. So he left before Abby and Libby even got there. Now, in Frank's 1, the defense team said that Rick was on the trails approximately from midday to about 1:30. So 1:30, 1:45. So left before the girls even got there. But we don't know. We don't know because law enforcement didn't do their job properly. We don't know what Rick actually said in 2017. We don't know whether he was lying in 2022 and he changed the time so that it looked like he'd gone by the time the crime happened? We don't know because it wasn't recorded. It's one word against another. And also, we don't know, and really importantly, what time Rick's phone was at the trials. We could find out what time Rick's phone was at the trials. How? By geofencing. We know geofencing was done. But bizarrely, Judge Gull, on the request of Nick McClelland, banned geofencing, banned any mention of geofencing. We would have known whether Rick's phone registered at the trails. We would have known. But no, Judge Gull not allowing it. So the defence absolutely do have an uphill battle here to explain where it was, what time he left. It's one word against another. But it's critical. But Judge Gull has banned the very evidence that could have given the answer, one way or the other. Why was geofencing banned? Who knows? We don't know, Tina. We don't know why it was banned. Because Nick didn't want it in. Nick didn't want it in, probably because Rick Allen's phone didn't register on the trails at the time of the murders. But maybe other phones did. And he didn't want to confuse the jury. Insane. The phone data, though, gets utterly bizarre. Utterly bizarre. But very informative. All right. So this is Wish TV, and then this timeline was also repeated by WTHR. So we know these times, at least two reporters have noted the same time. So 1:41 and 1:43, the girls were on their way to the trails, all right, in Kelsey's car, and she dropped them off at Mia's farm, the trail entrance at Mia's farm. She dropped them off at 1:48. She was seen at 1:49 passing Who's Your Harvester, so about 1:48. But there was two Snapchats that investigators found on Libby's phone, it actually in the Snapchat cache of Abby and Libby in the car. 2:05. All right, so it's about 700 meters, maybe 650 meters from the trailhead at Mia's farm to the middle of the bridge. It's not very far. So at 2:05, there was a picture that Libby had took of the bridge. And then at 2:07, it's weird because we've all seen this picture of Abby. So she's walking towards, she's about in the middle of the bridge. She's walking towards the south side. So in the distance, you see the north end. She's about halfway along. And we've always been told that was at 2:07. But that wasn't found. It wasn't found on Libby's phone, and it wasn't found in the Snapchat cache, which is weird. Now, I can understand, I can explain why the Snapchat wouldn't be on Libby's phone. Because on Snapchat, I haven't used Snapchat for a long time. I used Snapchat a lot, maybe 2014, 2015, and then I just kind of got bored with it, and I've not used it forever. I don't even know what my account is. I just haven't used it forever. So previous, I think now there's Snapchat's evolved, but at the time, unless you told Snapchat that you wanted to save the photos, so you'd literally open Snapchat and take a photo in Snapchat. And unless you told Snapchat in the settings that you wanted the photos saved to your phone, it wouldn't save them. So once the snap had been opened by everybody that it was sent to, it would just disappear. So I'm assuming, I mean, I know a lot of people say that it's photoshopped and whatever. Look, I'm open-minded about it. Is it? I don't know. It's a very good Photoshop if it is, because the way you can tell something's Photoshopped is Photoshop pictures. They always get the shadows wrong. And in this picture, the shadow's perfect. In exactly the right spot where you'd expect it to be. Because it's afternoon, so north, south, east, west. The sun's going to be here, and it's going to cast a shadow here. So it's a real picture. It's a real photo. I don't believe it's a made-up photo. It's the question is whether it actually was taken at 2:07, and it actually pinpoints where Abby was at 2:07, because it wasn't on Libby's phone. Now I can explain that for the reason I've just stated. Why it wasn't in the Snapchat cache with the others, though, I don't know. I don't know, but it is interesting because something else happened at 2:07. So it was last unlocked at 2:07. So you would think, well, she unlocked it to take this Snapchat. And then maybe she just snapped it, and I don't know. I don't know why it didn't save in the Snapchat cache. I don't know why. But somebody who she sent it to obviously screenshotted it, and this is why we have this photo. So we don't know. We don't know whether that actually was taken at 2:07. So we can't have that in the timeline. But she's wearing the right clothes. And it's not Photoshop. It's a real photo. I promise you it's a real photo. It's just whether it was taken at 2:07 on that day. Or was that another day Abby was there wearing the same clothes? Who knows? Anyhow, moving on. 2:13 Bridge Guy video. So 43 seconds takes us into 2:14. We know all this. All right. So Libby takes the Bridge Guy video at the south end of the bridge. Now, the Bridge Guy video, people in the court have said when they just played it without any enhancements, they couldn't really see very much. They couldn't really see very much or hear very much. So Lord only knows what the jury thinks of the Bridge Guy video. Because, of course, the prosecution's claim is that Bridge Guy was Richard Allen, and Bridge Guy, i.e. Richard Allen, is the killer. So, because no witnesses saw him, though, how can you even say that Richard Allen was Bridge Guy? His shoes are not right. What do you mean his shoes are not right? She's wearing the Converse. She's wearing Converse shoes. Like when she was found, she was wearing her own shoes. So they do look like Converse to me. Like those high top ones. I don't know. Anyhow, moving on. All right. Now, this is the thing. The last recorded movement of the phone was 2:32 and 39 seconds. That is the time. They do look like Converse, I agree. That is the time when that phone, because remember, the phone was found under Abby's body. But it gets even more confusing, and I've made several videos about this. About this health data. So she had an iPhone 6S, decent phone for its time. Still an okay phone. I've got one. So this, I can't get my head around this. I still can't. So using the phone's health app, it's inbuilt into the phone. You don't have to download it. You actually can't get rid of it. You can hide it, but you can't get rid of it. Chris Cecil, who was the state's phone guy, said he determined the girls walked about 700 meters between 131 and 208. So 208 puts them in the middle of the bridge. Assuming that What we actually do have a photo. We actually do know they were on the bridge, because there was one of just the bridge. It's in black and white, that was found in the Snapchat cache at 2:05, and that's facing the south side. So it's just as they're kind of heading onto the bridge, Libby snaps a picture, and then 2 minutes later, she snaps Abby. If that Snapchat photo, sorry, is actually from 2:07, but we do know they were on the bridge. There is a photo of just the bridge that was sent by Libby. All right, so we know they were on the bridge. We know absolutely they were on the bridge. Okay, so the Knowledge C database, they cocked this completely up. The defence's phone expert explained this by all accounts very well. That this Knowledge C database, it loses data. So every time you turn the phone on and then turn the phone off, it loses data from this Knowledge C database. So there's no way of knowing whether Libby's phone was turned on or off at all during the time that the girls were missing. This is the first and only time that Abby crossed the bridge. I heard that, yeah. I heard that. Okay. So he didn't know about the Knowledge C database. He still doesn't know very much about the Knowledge C database. But anyhow, this is the timeline that he pulled that we've already explained. All right. So this is where the problem comes. Now, the timeline I've included here comes from CHORLEY. She created this timeline based on what she heard in the courtroom. So this is the timeline from CHORLEY. Now, I also checked Andrea Burkhart and Bob from Defense Diaries, and they heard approximately the same thing, but some small differences. Doesn't make the timeline any easier to understand, but anyway. So I've mapped all of this out. I'll show you the map in a second. So I've mapped all of this out. So between 1:31 and 2:08. So 1:31 was when Libby's phone was picked up. So Libby was still at home at that point. So during the journey, presumably it wouldn't log any steps or any distance while they were in the car, unless the car ride was really bumpy. But there would have been some steps, like leaving the house, right? So from the bridge to, I'll just show you this. From the bridge, beginning at the north side. No, actually, I'm gonna confuse you if I do that. I'll do the map in a minute. So from the trailhead at Mears to the middle of the Morning High Bridge, it's about 650 meters approximately. So that's about right. Logging about 700 meters between 1:31 and 2:08 is about right, given that there would have been some steps before they even got to the bridge, before they even got to the trails. This is the confusing thing. Between 2:08 and 2:25, the phone logged 414 meters. This is the bit that I don't get. Now, other people, so again, this is CHORLEY's timeline, other people heard that the 414 meters was between 2:08 and 2:18. So a 10-minute time span. And then between 2:18 and 2:25, there was no movement at all on the phone. So CHORLEY missed that bit out. So it's a question mark. Was there a 7-minute time where the phone didn't move at all? And then between 2:25 and 231, there was another approximately 50 meters or 68 steps, which doesn't make sense because 50 meters, well, 1 meter is 3.3 feet. So to move 50 meters, you're going to use more than 68 steps. So that doesn't make sense. And then the phone registers 2 floors climbed, which is approximately 20 feet between 231 and 232. There's no place at the crime scene where they could climb 20 feet. And it has to be a climb. It's not going down a hill. The Apple Health app doesn't register. I promise you, I've had iPhones for years. Did an experiment. It's on this channel showing you that it will only record a floor. A floor is about 10 feet of a rise. When it's fairly steep and like going upstairs or going up a steep hill, it won't record a floor if you're going up a gradual incline. It doesn't register as a floor. And it doesn't register going down. All right. Okay. So this is what the south side looks like. All right. So right at the end of this bridge, right here, is where supposedly Abby and Libby met Bridge Guy. So he's somewhere here, all right, between these 2 platforms, according to their video. And Libby is taking the video from the right. I think she's off the bridge, right? And you have to have it. You have to have the video very enhanced to even see Bridge Guy. But this is the location on the south side. That's just what the bridge looks like. It's pretty scary, isn't it? It's about 65 feet high, and it used to take trains. Right, this is the old railway line. It used to take trains from one side of the valley to another. So each side of the valley, like at the highest point, are about the same kind of height. Okay. But there is easy ways to get down, which I'm going to show you in a minute. All right, so the bridge is here. This picture is being taken from the north side. I think just a bit further up than the crime scene. And the bridge is here. The road, the private drive, is here. And then it goes up to the Weber property. It's right here. So the bridge is there. So when BG said down the hill, did he mean this hill goes down here? It's only a few feet, as you'll see soon. It's only a few feet. Or did he mean this hill, which is a little bit steeper, but not much. It's not a bad hill to get down at all. All right. And the floor of the creek is flowing this way, west. West is here. So you got north, south, east, west. Okay. All right. So I've been trying all ways to work out where on earth all this walking could have happened. And there's potentially one way it could have happened. But then I get stuck. So I'm going to step out of this just for a second and show you the map. All right, so I've plotted all this out. Now, last time I did this, I couldn't work out where the 414 meters between 208 and 225 came from. Now, I have got a possible of what could have happened, assuming that the murders actually happened that afternoon and they weren't taken anywhere else. Okay. So first of all, we've got 700 meters. So this place here, where they were dropped off, to the kind of junction here is about 70 meters. And then walking down here to the middle of the bridge, which is about here, is about 590 meters, something along those lines. So you've got about 650, 660 meters accounted for. So it's a little bit lower than 700 meters. However, again, there would have been steps and stuff, and there would have been some steps and distance accrued before they even got to the trails, and they wouldn't have walked in a dead straight line. So 700 meters is about right. Then we've got 414 meters to account for between 208 and 225, or 218 if you want to add in that extra 7 minutes where the phone didn't move at all. So from the middle of the bridge, which is about here, to the end of the south side, and I've got this set to 2017, as you can see. So this is what the map was like in 2017, April 2017. So just 2 months after the murders. And you can see the end of the bridge is right there. All right. So there's the end of the bridge. There's the private drive that goes up to the Webbers. There's the Webbers. And you've got this little hill that takes you down. So if you look at the elevation change here, so you got to look here, elevation change. It doesn't matter what the numbers are, it's just how much they change. So we're at 182, 181, 182 at the end of the bridge. You get down to the private drive, you're going down about 3 meters to the private drive, which is about 10 feet approximately. It's not so far. And then, so, but remember, we're still got to account for all these meters. So from the middle of the bridge to the end of the bridge is about 120 meters. So we've got 120 meters accounted for. So we've got 294 meters now to account for. All right. Between 208 and 218, if we're taking into account that the phone didn't move at all between 218 and 225. I hope the jury are picking all this up. I hope the jury are working all this out. And I think one of the things that the defence really needs to hammer home in these closing arguments is just how confusing this phone data is. And it, as you'll see in a minute, it doesn't make sense based on the prosecution's own testimony. All right. So we've got 284 meters to account for. So I was thinking, all right, let's assume that the crime actually happened as the state says it did. It doesn't necessarily have to be Richard Allen, but the crime happened at 2:30 because the phone didn't move after 2:32. So the girls were already dead by 2:32. That phone didn't move at all. And it was under Abby's body. So Abby had to be dead or dying and led down where she was found, and the phone under her at 2:32 and 39 seconds. All right. So where's this 294 meters come from? Well, there's a path. So if you go down here to the private drive, it's about 10 feet down. And then you've got from the private drive, so keep watching there, private drive. So I'm looking for an easy way down. I'm looking for an easy way down. So again, we're looking at elevation change. So 178. So if you go down here, you go down to 171. So 7 meters. So what's that? 20 feet? I don't know. Approximately. You could work it out for me. And then there's a shallow walk down here to this area. Watch this. So elevation change, which you have to really squint, but it's right down here. It goes from 171 and it's a gradual slope down to this area. So it only slopes down 3 meters. You only go down 3 meters down here. Then you cross the creek. The creek's flat. This is the shallowest part of the creek. You go in a diagonal direction. This is the area where the clothes were found. And then this is the area where the crime happened. Now, the pin here is the exact latitude and longitude that is mentioned in the Ron Logan search warrant. So I know that the crime scene spanned several yards in each direction, like the crime scene tape. You've got several yards, like a square. So I don't know where the FBI put that pin. Did they put the pin in the middle, or did they put the pin to one side? But that's the actual longitude and latitude that is in the Ron Logan search warrant. So guess how far this is? It's about 240 meters, 250 meters, something like that. I'll do it again. Watch. Now, obviously, they may not have been walking in a straight line, and this is only assuming. What do you mean the Logan warrant? The Ron Logan search warrant that the FBI did in March of 2017. Because the FBI really looked at Logan. All right. So starting at the southern end of the bridge, we're going to go down. Keep walking. Oh, no. I want it on path. So I can go around a corner. All right. So walking down to the bottom here, then along. All right. So again, it's only a gradual slope down. Creek bed is shallow here. It's consistent at 168 meters above sea level all through the creek, and then it starts to rise a little bit, and we rise about 2 to 3 meters into the crime scene. And that is 244 meters, 245 meters. So there, if you went in that path, you filled in 240 meters of the 294 meters. Now, bear in mind, they're not going to be walking in a straight line. They're going to be taking smaller steps going downhill. So it might register as more steps, more distance. That's a possibility. So I think if the crime happened at that time, that's the path they took. Based on, it's the easiest route down. So I'll clear that one just so you can see one. That's the easiest route down. It's the shallow part of the creek, and the clothes are found right here. And then it's in the line, it's in the path of the crime scene. So that puts them. Now, this is a massive problem for the state. The state do not appreciate just how much of a problem this is. Because their own expert, and this was confirmed by the defense expert, who we're going to talk about in a bit, she confirmed that the meters and the steps that Cecil found on that phone data were accurate. So this is accurate. This actually happened, confirmed by the defense expert as well as the state expert. This happened, right? These meters were walked. These steps were walked. It's just where did they walk? It's where did they walk? All right. So this is a massive problem for the state now, because they've pinned themselves in to a very, very precise timeline. And I hope that the jury appreciates this. This will blow your mind. Because if it's true that that phone did not move from 218 to 225, by 218, they're already over here. By 218, they're already over here. So how did Brad Weber coming home between 2:27 and 2:30 interrupt him? Because by the time Brad Weber, even if Brad Weber did go by at this time, how on earth, they're all the ways over here, how on earth did Rick Allen or whoever, the killer, get disturbed? And the state have pinned themselves in to that timeline. Ha. Ha. So we just go back. See, this is the path that I've just explained. So bridge is up here. So they come down there to the private drive, down here, and walk along this shallow part here. And then the crossing there. And crime scene's up here. All right, moving on. So I don't need to play those. So you can see that the crime scene is large, but there's absolutely nowhere where there's a 20 feet rise. Nowhere. That's the like back end of the crime scene. So the creek's here, along here. And then they've sectioned off all the way up to Ron Logan's is up there. So that's about 50 feet. But that's beyond the crime scene. The crime scene itself is only on a very slight incline. There's nowhere that they could have walked 20 feet. So let me just go back to this. So based on this timeline, this is accurate, tick. This, if accurate, takes them over the north side by 2:18. Then there's a 7-minute window where apparently the phone may not have moved at all. Then between 2:25 and 2:31, presumably this is when the crime's actually happening, that there's all of this movement. So between 2:25 and 2:31, the crime's actually happening. But Brad Weber's coming home at this time. But the crime's already happening. Over the other side. Way, way, way over the other side. So how would Brad Weber disturb Rick Allen if indeed Brad Weber was coming home at that time? And with no credible statement as to when Brad Weber actually got home. Wah, wah, wah. And then there's nowhere between the end of the south side of the bridge and the crime scene that goes uphill 20 feet. Nowhere. So the state have got themselves into a little bit of a pickle. By being very precise on this timeline. It doesn't work out for them. So hopefully the jury become incredibly confused, as we all are, and say, we can't make head nor tails of this timeline. Therefore, there's our reasonable doubt. Okay.
Once again.
Don't need to play that. Remember, the phone is found under Abby's body, and the phone doesn't move after 2:32 and 39 seconds. So the crime has to have been done and dusted, Abby in the final position that she was found in, fully clothed, by 2:32, according to the state's timeline. Libby moves all over the place. This is the F tree that we've all heard about in relation to Odinism. Libby is stabbed here. She stumbles here. So maybe this is where the 50 meters comes in, that she's staggering, and maybe the phone's got inaccurate distance because she's like staggering about. So the phone's registering movement, but it doesn't really know what on earth's going on. So she's staggering about like dripping with blood. She falls down here and dies. So this is happening, according to the state's timeline, between 2:25 and 2:31. This is all happening, right? So that's your 50 meters. It's not 50 meters. It's nowhere close to 50 meters. She may be staggered maybe 10, 20 feet. Not really sure, but definitely not 50 meters. But maybe because she was staggering, maybe the phone just got confused. She's all over the place. She dies here. This is Lawyer Lee's diagram, by the way. And then she's dragged or carried. She had to be carried because there's no drag marks. So she's 200, she weighs 200 pounds. She's 5'4", the same height as Rick Allen. So you're gonna either carry or drag without leaving any marks a 200-pound girl who's bleeding out, right? And you place her within a few feet of Abby. Abby never moved, according to the state's witnesses. Abby never moved, but the phone is found under Abby. So all of this, you know, movement that Libby did had to have been done between 2:25 and 2:31. Then Abby is redressed in Libby's clothes. So Abby's in this position. She's redressed in Libby's clothes, but the phone is under her. That's what the state wants you to believe. That is what the state wants you to believe. The state's own timeline is the reasonable doubt, in my opinion. But there's more. Because yesterday... No, it wasn't yesterday. Was it yesterday or the day before? All the days have melded into one. Why take the time to redress? Exactly. Thank you, Momo Short. Why? Because supposedly he's been disturbed by Brad Webber's van. Supposedly. So instead of running away, he decides to kill them and redress Abby. Why? Is it possible Abby was carried over someone's shoulder? Abby never moved. The state's witness believes that Abby was killed where she was found. Abby never moved. Libby was the one that was moved. Anyway, we've got the headphone conundrum now. This is insane. So this is the defense phone witness. So she's called Stacey Eldridge. She's an ex-FBI agent. That's what she did with the FBI, like phone data stuff. She's now a consultant and she teaches this stuff. So she teaches at a couple of different like university colleges and she's a consultant. All right, so she understands the phone data way better than the state's experts. Still, however, she understands. I believe what she's saying. I believe when she said that all this movement that the phone did, you know, the 700 meters and the 440 meters and the 50 meters, that's accurate. She's confirmed that that's accurate. But then there's something else that shocked everybody. So, Eldridge is asked about the phone's health data. She says she agrees with what Cecil found, like the data on the steps and the distance. She says iPhones will not log steps if you're in a car or if the phone is powered off, which is true, unless you're on a very bumpy road and then it'll start logging steps. Like it's the quick up and down movement. Like do it on your own phone. If you've got an iPhone, do it on your own phone. So if you're picking up your phone, just like using it, like making a call or texting or browsing social media, watching a live stream, maybe you're walking about with your phone. Or no, if you're walking about with your phone, it's logging steps. If you're sitting down with your phone, like you're holding your phone up, just watching a live stream, it's not going to be logging any distance doing that. But shake it up and down. Shake it up and down, like, so let's say 10 times, and it'll log steps. It might even log more than 10 steps because it kind of like gets confused. It might log 20 steps. So bumpy roads, bumpy track, you know, like on a, let's say on a gravel track or something like that, where it's bumpy, it's going to log some steps. How many it's going to log is anybody's guess. But if you're just traveling on a, you know, a paved road and it's, you know, it's smooth, it's not going to log any steps. It's not going to log any movement. All right. So this is the problem. This is the mind blown aspect of this testimony here. Eldridge shares she now knows that at 5:45 and 44 seconds in the PM on the 13th of February to 10:32 PM, so 4 hours, 5 hours, so 6:45, 7:45, 8:45, 9:45, 10:45, so nearly 5 hours. That phone appears to have had wired headphones plugged into it. So this is an iPhone 6S, and the newer iPhones don't have a headphone port, you know, the little round hole. They don't have it. So you have to get headphones that are either wireless, like AirPods. Something wrong with my AirPods. So this is the very irrelevant sidebar. Something wrong with my AirPods. Something wrong with them. Do you know why? Because Cassie decided to find them one day, even though they didn't need finding. And she was running about with them in her mouth, thinking it was hilarious. And by the time I managed to like get her to drop them, the AirPods had come out. She had saliva all over them, and they've never worked properly since. They do work, but just very often they won't charge, and then they might charge, and then they might just not register. They just won't pair with my phone. It's just absolute. Oh, I don't know what's wrong with my AirPods, but they're expensive, so I don't want to buy any more. Anyway, yeah, so the later models of the iPhones, you've either got to buy AirPods or a non-branded version, like a cheaper version. Actually, I do have some cheap ones. I might try them again. All right. Anyhow, or you have to get wired headphones that's got at the end that's not a circle. It's like a lightning connection. Anyhow, on the 6S, it was a round headphone port. Okay. And for nearly 5 hours, she states that there was wired headphones plugged in to that port. She said it was either headphones or it could have been some other kind of auxiliary cord. So, you know, you can use your headphone port to, I think you can charge it in your car by using, I don't know, but there's other things that you can use that port for. And she said, I cannot think of any explanation that does not involve humans. However, I've got an iPhone 6. I've still got it. Don't use it now. But one day I had a problem. I said this in my video yesterday. One day I had a problem. Like my phone was behaving really weirdly. Hello, Noodle. My phone was behaving really weirdly. Hello, Noodle. What's up? Noodles. Noodles here. Noodles here. Hello. Noodles. I couldn't understand what was wrong with it, so I googled the symptoms, and it said, check your headphone port. Like my phone was stuck in headphone mode. Okay. So I Googled it. I'm not promising that it was this very site, but I Googled it, just like Cecil had to. Because when Stacey Eldridge gave this testimony in court, in the break, Chris Cecil Googled problems with headphone ports. So the advice, if your phone got stuck in headphone mode, clean the port. So I used them like a little needle or like the end of a paperclip or something. Like all the advice is don't do this. So I'm not telling you to do this because you could completely break it. But I did this and completely fixed it because there was a little bit of fluff in that little round hole. And I was just able to like tease it out and the phone was fine. However, if you've tried to do that, the next thing to do is check for water damage. This is just a random site. So this is the kind of thing that Chris Cecil would have found. So if cleaning the headphone jack doesn't help, you could have a different hardware problem, like if your iPhone is stuck in headphone mode. It's possible the phone has been damaged by water or other moisture getting inside. In that case, the headphone jack is the place the iPhone's water damage indicator appears on many models. I read this. This was yesterday. I read this and I was like, what? The iPhone tells you when it's got water damage. It actually tells you. So I became very interested. It shows up in the SIM card slot in more recent models. There's an indicator. Thank you, Robert, for joining. Welcome to the Secret Agents Club. Welcome, welcome. Do we know where Rick Allen was later that day? His wife says he was at home. He was at home when she got home from work and he never left. He was at home. For more detailed instructions on where the water damage indicator appears on every iPhone model, Apple support has everything you need. Oh, okay. Find out if your iPhone or iPod has been exposed to liquid. If liquid damages your iPhone, for example, coffee or a soft drink, the servicing for the liquid damage isn't covered by Apple. Oh dear. Oh dear. Anyway, most iPhone and iPod devices are equipped with liquid contact indicators or LCIs that you can see from the outside. So your iPhone tells you if it's struggling because of water damage. An LCI will be activated when it comes into contact with water or liquid containing water. Thank you, Robert, for gifting a membership. That's very kind of you. And it's Teresa. Welcome, welcome. Thank you, Robert, and welcome, Teresa. The indicator's colour is normally white or silver. But when it comes into contact with water or liquid containing water, it will turn fully red. To find out where it is, check this handy-dandy guide here. So, Libby had an iPhone 6S. Woohoo! So, if this phone had water damage, all they needed to do, this is the SIM card port, is open the SIM card port, and if you saw the little red dot, it's got water damage. It tells you it's got water damage. Unbelievable. So this is yet another conundrum that could have been solved if the expert that actually did this testing did a little bit of Googling before he actually did the job. Because it took me literally 5 minutes, less than 5 minutes. I Googled, like, I don't know, water damage in headphone port or something, iPhone 6. I found this site, just a random site. That was one of the first ones that came up. They directed me to Apple. So I went to Apple, and Apple gives me this handy-dandy indicator for every single model of iPhone. So yet another issue that we would have known absolutely the answer to. The experts should already know this. Yeah, but they didn't check. Nobody checked. Nobody checked. Did Trooper Cecil Paul, his name's not Cecil Paul, his name is Chris Cecil. Cecil is his surname. No, he didn't check it. Didn't check it. Admitted that none of them checked for water damage. And it's not like you have to be an absolute expert. 5 minutes Googling, which Chris Cecil seems to be good at, gives you the answer. Nobody checked. All right, moving on. Confessions. No, he didn't make 61 confessions. That, you know, all these details that only the killer would know. All right, moving on. I'm not going to talk about the interrogations. So October 13th and October 26th. But the summary of those interrogations is that Rick was absolutely adamant and clear, never wavered about his innocence. At the beginning of November, before he even had lawyers, he was taken to Westville Correctional Facility, maximum security, and there he stayed in solitary confinement. Oh, we can't use the term solitary confinement anymore. We've got to just say one person cell, like it's some kind of holiday camp where you get your own room. Oh, you don't have to share. So, you know, somebody else's farts or, you know, tedium is interfering with you. No, he gets his own room. Why don't they just say his own room rather than cell? Anyhow, he's there for 13 months in solitary confinement with 24-hour surveillance. So, these confessions. Well, one of them to one of their suicide companion guards was that he murdered the girls using a box cutter. Used a box cutter. And he put it in the CVS dumpster. Thank you, Suzette, for the $399.99 South African Rand. Thank you so much. Thank you. The medical examiner said, oh, Libby's neck wounds could have been caused by a box cutter because he's been nobbled. Because that testimony was the first news that the defense had heard that the medical examiner thought that Libby's wounds were caused by a box cutter. In the deposition with him, this witness said the wounds were likely caused by a knife with a serrated edge. And the wounds caused to Libby were likely caused by a weapon with a non-serrated edge. That's what the medical examiner said to them in their deposition. Isn't it convenient? Yes, it is. Okay. Other confessions, loads of them, but just random shit. These are throughout April. I want to confess. I know a lot. What more I got to do? Killed Abby and Libby. My wife wasn't involved. I'd like to confess. Can I talk? Can you listen? How do I prove I'm insane? Why are you doing this? Do you know God? I'll take some KFC. My grandpa molested me. All of this nonsense that he was coming out with. That was to the guards. All this nonsense was to the guards who were outside his cell 24 hours a day. So he's in maximum security. There's all these inmates shouting to him. But, oh, it's okay. He's in his own room. They can't get to him. So they're shouting to him all day and night. He can't turn the light off. So he's in permanent light. So his circadian rhythms are just out of whack. Can't turn his light off. He's 24-hour surveillance on a camera. Thank you, Jessica, for the $10 and the rolling around avocado. Thank you. And every 15 minutes, these suicide companions, i.e. the guards, have got to write down what he was doing or saying. But before the guards were given this task, the suicide companions were other inmates. None of those were called to testify. Why? Well, because the confessions made to them were clearly untrue, such as, I killed my whole family. I even killed my grandchildren. Well, his family are all alive and well. They've been in court. He said that he molested his sister. His sister's brought to the stand. No, she says, no, Rick didn't molest me. His daughter said he molested his daughter. No, his daughter's brought to the stand. She says, no, he didn't molest me. I love my dad. However, very clear that beginning of April, he's entering this period of psychosis. Really serious psychosis. Although the psychologist who was treating him, Dr. Monica Waller, thought he was faking it. Now they've changed it. Now they realise that the jury, thank you so much, Kaz, for the £10. Thank you so much. I'm losing the, hold on, I can't read the comment. My chat's moving too much. Here we go. Here we go. I know. Us in the UK, it's shocking to watch what's going on there. You just wouldn't think it would happen in a civilized society, would you? Look, bad things go on here as well. I can promise you bad things go on here as well. But yeah, the fact that they go on at all. And thank you. Thank you to... I need a mouse. I need a mouse. This trackpad doesn't work properly. Thank you, LG Gal, for the $1.99. Thank you so much. Thank you. All right, moving on. They changed the tune once they realised that the jury were absolutely horrified by the prison videos that the defence played. 15 videos of him being transported about, you know, with a hood over his head, with strapped to a wheelchair, dragged around, dragged into a shower. I mean, just horrendous. And then a couple of videos from the in-cell camera, just absolutely horrendous. So they had to change the tune. So Dr. Monica Waller, who'd been programmed to say she thought he was faking, well, that changed. So somebody's lying. Anyway, so beginning of April, when these confessions start coming thick and fast, he's making all these psychotic comments. Am I already dead? How do I prove I'm sane? So he's saying, how do I prove I'm insane? And then the next day is, how do I prove I'm sane? How can I go home? Am I in jail? I'm not racist. Please help me. Please, God, help me. Probably that's the truest statement he's ever made. Please, God, help me. Don't know where God was at this point. Anyway, the most damaging confession is from Dr. Monica Waller. This is what he said to Dr. Monica Waller, clinical psychologist, got fired. Don't darken Westville's door again. May 3rd, 2023. Alan told Waller about what happened on February 13th, 2017, allegedly. He said he visited his mother in the morning in Mexico, Indiana, which is about 40 miles away. Declined an invitation to go out for to lunch with the family. Instead, drank 3 beers, followed the girls to the bridge, drove to the trails, followed the girls to the bridge. He then said, I messed with the gun. And I guess that's when the bullet fell out. Well, no, because he messed with the gun and the bullet fell out. Well, if you're messing with the gun before you tell the girls to go down the hill, the bullet or the unspent round will be found on the south side. No, it was found at the crime scene on the north side. Is there sound? Yes, there should be sound. Is there sound? Yes. Phoenix. Thank you for joining. Welcome. And Eleanor, thank you so much for the $20. Doing an amazing job keeping us updated with the Delphi. It's been an experience. Let's put it that way. Thank you so much for the donation. All right. So no, that didn't happen. But the prosecution have got what they wanted. They've got the little piece of information that only the killer would know. Or have they? Well, Alan told her he saw a man or heard a van. It was a van. I think we've concluded it was a van. And that's what scared him not to rape them, because that was his original plan. But because he got disturbed by the van on the south side, he then forced the girls down the hill, across the creek, slashed their throats, covered their bodies with tree branches and walked back to his car. So instead of just running away, he did all that nonsense. This is the private drive that we're talking about on the south side. So we've already seen the south side. This is what it looks like. That's like at the top. The private drive goes underneath. So there's a path that goes along the top, and then there's a road that comes along, goes under the bridge, and then kind of winds round to the Weber house. So you can see there, that's from the top of the hill. It winds down. So this is the little road that Brad Weber supposedly drove by to go to his house, rather his mother's house that he was looking after because she was away. Drove by between 2:27 and 2:30. Doesn't fit. The timeline does not fit, because if you need to believe the previous phone data that we've already talked about, that both the state and the defence witness have said is accurate, the girls had to be over the other side of the creek by 2:18. Okay. All right. We'll come back to that. Let's just spend a little bit of time slagging off Dr. Monica Waller. Okay. So these are her notes. So starting in April of 2023, so when all these confessions started to come thick and fast, she's noting that he's critical, deteriorating, has delusions, insomnia, hopelessness, just not eating, not sleeping, critical, self-harming, running into his walls, banging his head. He had to be given emergency Haldol, like it's an antipsychotic. By the 14th of April, grave disability, covering himself in feces. All the way through April, disjointed thoughts, still going downhill, pardon the pun. Just really, really bad, really bad. Through May, really bad. Having to be tased. He was tased. So in the midst of his psychosis, they tased him because he just wasn't responding. Thank you, Mace Mama, for the $4.99. Will we be able to get transcripts, exhibits, etc.? Well, technically, yes, but whether Francis Gull is gonna allow it is another matter. I have no idea. If she's going to allow it. Technically, yes, though. But thank you, Jadzia, for the $1.99. That's very kind of you. Wish the jurors had access to my analysis. Well, I just hope that the defence are able to do this on my behalf. Oh, thank you so much, Barbie, for the $50. That's very kind of you. Put into words and research what I truly believe in my heart. So, oh, thank you. You were very, very generous. $50 is a lot of money. All right. So throughout May, all right, just not responding. They're tasing him to get him to move. Disorganized thinking, which is accelerated. By the 18th of May, he's in a vegetative state of depression. The 22nd of May, he's having a psychotic reaction to stress, she puts in her notes. 23rd of May, tasing him again. Throughout June, she says his depression peaked. Physiological symptoms presenting, trembling, stuttering, knees buckling, eyes bulging. By July, some signs of restoration. So we've got all of April, all of May, and all of June. And then some signs of restoration in July. So only some. Thank you, Susan, for the £5. If you throw the phone up, does it record an incline? It would record a step. If you threw it up, I think it would record a step. It wouldn't record an incline, though, I don't think. Because it has to go up 10 feet to record one floor. So if you can throw it further than 10 feet, it might. I'm not going to try it because I can't catch very well. Thank you, Cass, for the £5. Thank you so much. Can I play for us interview with Richard's ex-lawyer, William Labrato? It's an eye-opener. I've got it on my channel. I've played it before on my channel. It is an eye-opener, though. It's terrifying. Terrifying. But yeah, it's on the channel somewhere. Yeah, so for 3 solid months, he's in psychosis, really bad. And there's 2 forms of psychotic symptoms. You've got positive symptoms, which is like doing stuff that is psychotic, that is just out of touch with reality and saying stuff. And then you've got negative symptoms. I don't know why they call them positive and negative symptoms. They just do. It's just what they call them. Negative symptoms are things like catatonia, which is just basically like stirring, non-responsive. He's showing more of the negative symptoms, like the catatonic symptoms, I think. But anyway, at trial, she said she thought he was faking. That's because the prosecution had told her to say that. We have these are notes that Yellow Jacket took at the 3-day hearing where she spoke. And these are very, very detailed. Very detailed. History of generalized anxiety, yes. History of personality disorder, more severe anxiety when separated from family, yes. So dependent personality disorder. Classified as code D. I don't know what you have to be a code E. Fragile. Thrown in solitary confinement led to a defensive reaction. These are from Monica Waller's notes. This is what she stated at the 3-day hearing. Yet at trial, in front of the jury, she said she believed he was faking. Suicide ideation, lots of it. Lots of it. So a lot of this, she said at trial. So end of March, she said, I don't feel right. So the things that she started to note started on April the 1st. Suicide ideation, delusions, insomnia, poor appetite, hopelessness, low self-esteem, loads of it. So yes, she's mentioned these at the trial. But she's said she thought that he was faking. Trembling, stuttering, buckling knees and bulging eyes. Vegetative state. So severely psychotic. In a vegetative state, so highly psychotic, demonstrating catatonia, which is part of the kind of the negative symptomology of psychosis. Then we bring in Dr. Waller. So it was disastrous, in my opinion. This was on the state's rebuttal. So the defense rested at the beginning of yesterday, and then they had to get the rebuttal witnesses in, and the very final witness, like the creme de la creme of witnesses, this is the thing that they wanted the jury to take away with them, like the last thing that the jury hears. They wanted it to be from Dr. Martin. Dr. John Martin is a psychiatrist who worked at Westville when Alan was there, and he agreed. So he disagreed with Waller. He said that Rick Allen was psychotic throughout April. Very psychotic indeed. Very psychotic. So he was given Haldol. Met with Rick Allen. So on the 18th, he was given his first long-acting dose. Met with him 1 week later. Still psychotic, but there was some improvement. Describes the improvement as being no evidence of smearing feces. That's an improvement. Alan would recognise him, but did not know the date. Martin told the court that Alan knew he was in prison and asked for his wife and Taco Bell. So he's thinking that, oh, Rick's improving. He's asking for his wife and Taco Bell. He believed that April 13th was the height of his psychosis. He saw him several times in May, and each time Rick was coherent. No evidence of psychosis. By the end of the month, he was eating meals and had spoken to his wife. On June 20th, he'd gone 7 weeks without showing any signs of psychosis, and therefore they decided to stop the Haldol injections. And on that day, 20th of June, he said, "I would like to apologise to the families of my victims." So this is the last thing that the state wanted the jury to know. That yes, Rick Allen was psychotic. They've witnessed the videos, but he got better. He got better really quickly. And Monica Waller, who made all of this information, spilled all of this to the trial, all of this throughout May and June, but said, oh, he's faking it. Well, which is it? He's either faking it for 3 months before he starts to improve, or he's very psychotic for 1 month and then he miraculously improves. Which is it? Well, by all accounts, the cross-examination of Dr. Martin by Brad Rosie was a masterclass in great lawyering. Because what Rosie did was played a video from June 20th, the very day when Dr. Martin said that Rick was so improved that he could stop his Haldol injections. And the very day when Rick Allen said to Dr. Martin that he wanted to apologise to the families, the video is played. There's sidebars and all that stuff. But the video is Rick Allen being treated by a nurse. He's strapped into a wheelchair, and if he hadn't have been strapped in, he would have just fallen out. He was just completely unresponsive. So they're giving him a checkup, checking his vitals, that kind of thing. He was completely unresponsive, couldn't even hold himself up. Thank you, Sean, for the $1.99. Yeah, yesterday's rebuttal was a joke, but the cross-examination was an absolute masterclass. He was falling out of the chair if he hadn't have been strapped in. But yet, Dr. Martin, psychiatrist, who's been a psychiatrist for like 40 years, said that he was so improved, he was coherent, he didn't need his Haldol injections anymore. The guy was just completely catatonic. Martin tells the jury he doesn't know why Alan's actions on June 20th seemed different than what he'd recorded, but that he does not question his own records. He says he believed that Alan had returned to baseline by May the 2nd. Oh, look, May the 2nd, the day before that big confession about being disturbed by the van. Oh, the very day before. Yeah, whatever. Not sure the jury believed him or even what the jury thought. Tells the jury there's not anything to communicate that Alan couldn't have communicated spontaneously on June the 6th. Don't know what even that refers to. But anyway, 2:13 is when the jury asks their questions. Did the oral Haldol continue after June 20th? Yes. So he's still taking antipsychotics, just not injections. He's taking it orally. So all of this, he's completely better. We can stop the Haldol injections. Well, they were giving him tablets. What time did you meet with Alan on June 20th? Early in the morning. But we don't know what time the video was at. Based on the video, could this presentation be consistent with faking? He says no. So Waller said that he was faking the whole thing. This psychiatrist says, no, he wasn't faking, because he's been told to say this. He's been told to say this because the jury were utterly shocked by the prison videos. So they've now got to admit that, yes, he was psychotic, but he was only psychotic for a little while. And when that big confession came, he was all better by then. Makes me absolutely sick. It makes me sick. Is it possible for Alan to slip in and out of psychosis in a 24-hour period? Martin says, yes, that is true. It is absolutely true. You can slip in and out of psychosis. You absolutely can. So, in my opinion, that was disastrous for the state. But I just don't know what the jury would make of it. I don't know what the jury would make of it. This was allowed to be released. This was released by the news, by the reporters. This was from Wish TV. So the following is a direct transcript of an exhibit shown to the media today after the court adjourned. And they were allowed to release this. This is a psych eval. They were allowed to release this to the public. It's a psych eval of Richard Allen prepared by Dr. John Martin on June 20th. This morning, the patient was interviewed in an interview cell, so a cage. He had been wearing a uniform when he was taken to the cell, but chose to take it off and was in a t-shirt and boxers. Several contusions on his face or bruises had been self-induced, are no longer as prominent. So the bruises must have happened at some point in June. So he's still injuring himself. He's still self-harming in June. Eye contact was poor. He spoke very softly and also very briefly. He kept asking for Dr. Waller because she befriended him, even though she thought he was faking. He was coherent and spoke with loose associations or flight of ideas, or without loose associations or flight of ideas. He was oriented to person, place, time, day, and situation. He has constricted affect, which is like constricted emotions. He said he had suicide ideation. He did not want to talk much because he was flaming catatonic. You're just making shit up now. What he did talk about was concern for his wife. He said he wanted to apologise to the families of his victims. He's eating his meals, he's keeping himself clean. A renewal of the log shows he's getting an adequate amount of sleep and he's eating most of his meals. He has been meeting with Dr. Waller for therapy sessions and he's due to see her in a few minutes. He was not consistent in taking his oral medication, so it was discontinued. So they've taken him off Haldol. But he told the jury that he was getting oral Haldol after the 20th of June. So he's lied. He's either lied to the jury or this is a lie. He's not consistent in taking his oral medications, and so it was discontinued. He will continue on Prozac. I'm discontinuing the Haldol today. In general, he is much improved and does not appear to be psychotic at the present time. He claims to be suicidal. He's continued on suicide watch. He will be interviewed again in 2 weeks. Wow. The media were allowed to release that. And the video that was shown from the very same day, he couldn't even sit up in a chair without being strapped in, completely catatonic, completely non-responsive. Unbelievable. Anyway, I did say I'd circle back. This is the man of the hour. This is the man, according to this brilliant confession, this is the man who disturbed Rick Allen and panicked him so much that he decided to kill the girls instead of raping them. Thank you, Peace and Harvest. Thank you so much for the $20. That's very kind of you. All right. So this is from a few days ago. So this is Brad Webber. Lives at the south side of the bridge. Worked at Subaru. which is in Lafayette, so about half an hour away. Clocked out at 2:02 p.m. that day. Said he went straight home. Said it took him 20 to 25 minutes to get there. It says it takes 31 minutes on the map, but maybe he drives fast. All right. So the defense brought him back to talk to him, but he maintains his story. And this man driving by to go to his house at 2:30 is the thing that supposedly Rick Allen confessed to Monica Waller, who thought he was faking, remember? And it's the only thing, the thing that only the killer would know, except, so that's the distance, 31 minutes, except the van is now the state's whole case. And as I said before, they've locked themselves in with this really tight timeline. It's a real problem. It's a real problem for them. And I don't know whether they realize it. I just hope that the jury realizes it, because the timeline doesn't work. Because the timeline doesn't work, but the timeline that the state have created is potentially not even true, because Brad Weber has been discussed loads on social media. This is from 4 years ago, so I don't know what it's in response to, but people were under the impression, and his mother, Kay Sanders Weber, used to talk on social media to people. Everyone was under the impression that Brad only got home at 3:30, not 2:30. And he was actually not even driving his van. He was driving his black Subaru. Don't know what model of black Subaru. Don't know whether it could be mistaken on a CCTV camera for a black Ford Focus. I've no idea. However, we've known a long time about Brad Weber and his van. We've known about various vans. So this van that the state believes only the killer would know about, well, I bet you any money Monica Waller knew about it, because she was all over social media, in loads of Facebook groups, all over Reddit. She was even using her real name. She was watching loads of YouTube. Thought they were all great. She'd have known about the van. How easy would it be to put into the mind of a psychotic man that a van passed by? How easy would it be to implant that false memory? Very easy to a psychotic man. Found this morning. Just someone called Steve. All right, because I've been watching lots of videos of people walking over the bridge and all of this stuff. And the title of this video is very interesting. Thank you, A to Z, for gifting 5 memberships. That's very kind of you. So we've got Capital Productions, we've got Just James, we've got Aaron, we've got Esther. Is that it? I think that's it. So thank you so much. Thank you, A to Z. I only count 4 people. But anyway, thank you so much. And welcome. Get a monthly membership courtesy of A to Z. All right, look at the title of this video. This is from a year ago. Monon High Bridge beyond the South End to private houses and white van. Everybody knew about it. This video was from the 7th of February, 2023. Rick Allen was in prison at this time, but this is before Rick Allen was psychotic. The van has been talked about for years. Loads of people have talked about the van. Anyway, I took some screenshots from this guy's video. It's an interesting video. So these are just bridge pictures here. So this is from the south side looking north. So bridge guy would have been maybe around here. Not sure. Right there. But look here, this is the Webbers here. So he zoomed in. The house isn't that close. He zoomed in here. This is the Webbers. And oh, look, there's a white van. Everybody knew about a van, a potential van. That's the other house that's near there as well. That's zoomed in. They're not that close. So don't be kind of fooled by how close these look. They're not close. He's zoomed in. But there's the van. Loads of people were talking about the van and Brad Webber. So, Monica Waller thinks she's being so clever by going into all these groups and then feeding bits of information to Rick Allen while he's psychotic. And he probably believes he did it at this point. He's probably believing these false memories that she's implanting in him. She's a psychologist. She knows how to do this kind of shit. Take it from one who knows. All right, that's looking from this area. So just kind of stepping out here to a few steps to the east and looking down. And in the distance there, you can see the crime scene. And he is zoomed in on this. He's a little bit zoomed in. So thank you, Happy Cat Fee, for joining. Welcome to the Secret Agents Club. So there's like I said, he's zoomed in a bit. So things do look closer, obviously, when you zoomed in. So about 10 foot down, there's your private drive. So by 2:18, based on the phone data, if the crime happened, as the state says, the girls weren't taken away and killed later, by 2:18, they were over the other side of the creek. You can just about see the creek there. Just about see them. That's the creek. That's the opposite bank. And the crime scene is kind of about there. Right? So if you were all the way over there, would you see a van that was driving along here? My argument would be no. You wouldn't notice it. And certainly the man in the van wouldn't notice you over there, because something that wasn't asked of Brad Webber. Why didn't people ask him, did you see Rick Allen? Did you see Rick Allen? Did you see the girls and Rick Allen? Did you see anybody? Because how did he magically run away? This is February of last year. No leaves on the trees. So how did he manage to run away with two girls without being seen by Brad Webber, who's driving by? Doesn't make sense, does it? No. But according to the phone data, they've got to be over the other side of the creek by 2:18. Or else the timeline based on the phone data doesn't work. But based on the van theory, the phone data doesn't work. Thank you, Light the Way, for gifting 5 memberships. That's very kind of you. We've got Claire, we've got Cricket Day, we've got Elle, we've got Loxy, and we've got Lost in Wonderland. So thank you so much and welcome. Get a monthly membership. Go and check out the members area. So which is it? Either the phone data doesn't work in the state's theory, bearing in mind that the phone data is accurate based on both what the state and the defense witness have said. The phone data is accurate. And let's go all the way back to the timeline here. Let's go all the way back to the timeline. Okay. So these measurements are accurate. So we know by measuring it on the map, this is roughly accurate. We know the only way that could work is if they went over the other side, so didn't stay on the south side, as Rick said in his confession. The only way this works from the state's theory is if they went over the other side of the creek to the crime scene by 2:18. And then this between 2:25 and 2:31, that would have been when the killing happened. This doesn't make sense. 2:31 to 2:32. This does not make sense. I cannot make that make sense. I can't make that make sense in the state's timeline. But this now is locked in. This is locked in. This is accurate. This is what Libby's phone did. So this is locked in. We've got to try to make this make sense. So some of it makes sense, some of it doesn't. But it certainly doesn't make sense when you take this confession. Where's this confession? It doesn't make sense when you take this confession. Doesn't make sense. So ordered the girls down the hill. So they're in the vicinity of the private drive. Saw a van. Scared him. So then decided to take the girls down the hill, across the creek, slash their throats, cover their bodies with tree branches, and walk back to his car. So according to the confession that the state are saying is Rick giving information that only the killer would know, he's saying he was scared on the south side, and that's what made him go to the north side. But Brad Weber couldn't possibly, based on Brad Weber's testimony, couldn't possibly have been there before 2:30. Couldn't possibly have been there before 2:30. 2:25 if you really drove like the clappers. But based on the phone data, Rick Allen and the girls, well, Libby's phone, couldn't have been on the south side. So the state have got themselves into this massive problem. I just hope that the jury works this out and works out that this cannot possibly work. All these details don't work. We know the phone data is accurate. Those are locked in. Those times are locked in. But based on what we know about where the crime scene was, based on what we're told to believe that Rick Allen confessed to, those times don't work. Those times and those distances don't work. So that's what I would be impressing as hard as I could on to the jury if I was doing the closing arguments. So what do you think? What do you think? Because I've got to say I'm pretty exhausted now going through all that. It doesn't work. And even if Rick Allen is the guy, even if he's the guy, it can't be proven by the information that the state has given us. That's 100%. So it's going to be 6 minutes past, 6 minutes past 10 in Indiana. So closing arguments will be, maybe Nick McClellan will have started his closing by now. Yeah, the state's theory is beyond flawed. Doesn't make sense. And remember, the defense don't have to prove anything. They don't have to prove anything. They don't have to put any witnesses on. They don't have to do anything. It's the state who has the burden of proof to prove that Rick Allen did this horrendous, terrible crime. And in my opinion, based on what they've given us, or everything that I've given you here, is from the trial. Or at least it's from what other people have reported from the trial. All of that is based on what came out at trial. And and that's just a broad brush. I could have gone on and on and on. I could talk for another 2 hours. but I'm not going to, because I think I've made my point. And just breaking down that timeline and just showing it just can't have worked. It can't have been said. It can't have been done in the way that the state have said. And therefore, the state have not proven their case beyond a reasonable doubt, in my opinion. So the jury has to come back, in my opinion, has to come back with not guilty. Whether they will, though, you know, it's a high bar. It's a high bar to jump over. It really is. The vast majority of people who face a jury are convicted, are given a guilty verdict. And some are overturned on appeal, but it can take years. So I don't know. I'm really nervous. I really am. I'm really nervous. But at this point, I'm going to go now, and I'm going to try and, I don't know, fill my day with something that maybe isn't related to this for a little while, because it is going to be a while before we get any news. It's going to be quite a while before we get any news. Thank you, Barbie, for the $10. That's very kind of you. Wish could be in the courtroom today. I know. Living it through our attorney friends, we are. We absolutely are, and that's just really sad. Really sad. So I'm going to go now, and if we get a verdict, I'm going to come back. Whatever time that is, I will be back. Whatever time that is, I will be back. So thank you all for joining me. And yeah, I'll go live as soon as I hear it from a credible source that a verdict has been reached. And then we're just going to have to wait for people to come out of the courtroom to tell us what that verdict was. It could be today. Absolutely could be today. Yes, it could be today. So if you think about it, closing arguments, she's given them 2 hours to 2.5 hours each. There's jury instructions, which might take half an hour, 40 minutes, if not a bit longer. So it is going to be this afternoon by the time closing arguments are finished and deliberation begins. So unless they do the closing arguments reasonably quickly, because they might only do, an hour each. They don't have to use all of that time. She just has been generous with the time that she's allotted to them. But let's just wait and see. So it could well be today. And as I said right at the beginning, we've got no idea at the moment how long she's going to allow them to, how long the courthouse is going to stay open for them to carry on deliberating. Thank you, Barbie, for the $2. Pins and needles, I know, pins and needles. So, right, so I may see you later. If not, then we're going to be on Verdict Watch tomorrow as well. But as soon as I see a reputable source saying a verdict has been reached, I will go live. There won't be any waiting. I will just go live, and then we can wait together. So, all right, thank you all for joining me. Thank you for the donations. You've all been very generous, for those that did donate. Welcome to the new members, as always. Welcome. Check out the members area. Thanks, mods. You are superstars, and may well see you later. If not, it's pins and needles all day. All right. Bye, guys.